You know what the most gut-wrenching sound in the world is? It's not thunder. It's not a siren in the middle of the night. It's not a child crying. The most gut-wrenching sound in the world is this phone right here, sitting on the kitchen table that hasn't rung in 4 months. 4 months. I look at it every morning when I get up and make my coffee. I look at it while I wait for the percolator to finish. I look at it the way you look at someone who let you down, with that strange mix of anger and hope that disgusts you because you just can't shake it loose. And you, watching this video, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You feel it too. My name is Frank Caruso, 79 years old, born and raised in Pittsburgh on the South Side, back when the steel mills were still running and the air tasted like iron and hard work. I spent 40 years in construction, poured concrete, set rebar, built bridges and overpasses all over this state. Structures that'll outlast me by 100 years, carrying strangers who'll never know my name. And then I'd come home every night, hands cracked, back busted, and I'd work at raising my kids too. 3 kids. 3. I changed diapers, I paid for school, then college. My daughter Rosie was the first in our family to get a degree. When she walked across that stage, I cried like a baby in the front row. I'm not ashamed to say it. I skipped vacations for years because money was always tight. I sold my truck to bail out my son Michael when he got in over his head with debt. I lay awake for 20 years worrying about them. And now, at 79, with knees that ache even on good days, I find myself here, in this kitchen, with coffee going cold, and a phone that doesn't ring. At Christmas, my daughter Julie texted me, "Happy holidays, Dad. Can't make it this year. Hugs." Hugs, like you'd sign off on a card to a coworker. That's what I got for a lifetime of work. But today I want to tell you something that might sting to hear. But I'm 79 years old, and I don't have time for polite lies anymore. Stop calling them. Yeah, I know what you're thinking. Frank, but they're my kids. I know. Mine are mine too. And I get it. I've been there. Every Sunday morning I'd pick up the phone and call. First Michael, then Rosie, then Julie. And I'd hear it ring. Burr, burr, burr. And then voicemail. "You've reached Michael. Leave a message." And I'd leave the message. "Michael, it's Dad. Just thinking about you. Call me back when you get a chance. Nothing urgent." Nothing urgent. Like I had to justify the fact that I was still alive. And I'd wait. Sometimes he'd call back in 2 days. Sometimes a week. Sometimes not at all. And then next time he'd say, "Dad, I never saw that call." 3 times, the same excuse. I kept calling, kept sending texts. I forward photos of the grandkids I found on Facebook. "Look how big little Connor's getting. He's got your eyes at that age." Hoping the photo would crack something open. It didn't crack open, and I kept calling anyway, because I was scared. Scared that if I stopped calling, I'd disappear. Scared that if I went quiet, they'd forget I existed. But listen to what I'm about to say, because it's the hardest thing I ever figured out. If you have to remind your child that you exist, they've already forgotten you. That sentence woke me up at 3 in the morning when it finally hit me. I turned it over and over in my head, like a stone in your mouth, trying to find a way to make it less true. There was no way. And then I understood something else. When you call 5 times a week in that sad voice, that old man with nothing to do voice, you're not asking for love. You're asking for pity. And pity is not love. Pity is the opposite of love. Because love wants you close, and pity wants you just far enough away that they don't have to feel guilty about you. I spent my whole career in construction. I know when a structure is failing, and that structure was failing. I put the phone down, but at night, the mind won't quit. I know you. I know what you do when the lights go off. I did it for years. You start rewinding the tape, hunting for the exact moment it all went wrong. I worked too much. I was never home. I was too hard on them. My old man was hard on me, and I just passed it down without thinking. I wasn't there enough. Men of my generation didn't hug. They told us that wasn't something you did. I fought with their mother in front of them. God. And on it goes, like a judge running a trial at 3 in the morning, and you're the defendant, the witness, and there's no lawyer on your side. Stop it. I'm not saying you were a perfect parent. Lord knows I wasn't. I made mistakes. I had a short fuse sometimes. I said things I shouldn't have. I missed a school play, a Little League game, because the job didn't wait. But I showed up. I put food on the table every night. I kept the lights on when things got dark outside. I loved them the best way I knew how, the way I was raised to, which wasn't perfect, but it was real and it was mine. If your kids are punishing you today for something that happened 30 years ago, that is a choice they are making, not you. You can apologize once, you can apologize twice, but you cannot spend the rest of your life on your knees begging forgiveness for mistakes you made when you were young and didn't know any better. No child has the right to hold you hostage to your past while you're standing right here in the present, still loving them. Forgive yourself. I mean it. Tonight, when you shut this video off, forgive yourself. Not because you didn't make mistakes, but because carrying that guilt doesn't help anybody. Not you, not them. It only gives them a weapon. And you shouldn't hand them that weapon. You did your job. You honored the contract. You deserve some peace. My grandfather's name was Angelo. He had a small vegetable plot out behind the house in Bloomfield, just a patch of dirt between the alley and the fence. He was out there every morning with his old hat and hands that had seen everything. One day, I must have been around 12, I asked him, "Grandpa, why do you get up so early to mess around with that little garden?" He stopped, took his hat off, and said, "Frankie, the tomato doesn't grow because you stand there staring at it. It grows because you show up every day, water it, pull the weeds, and then go about your business. You stand there waiting for it to grow, you'll be dead first." I was 12 years old, so I figured he was talking about tomatoes. Now I'm 79, and I know he was talking about everything else. For 5 years, I spent my Sundays in that chair, waiting for the phone to ring. I lost 5 years of Sundays, 5 years of autumn drive through the Laurel Highlands, of Saturday morning flea markets, of card games with the guys at the VFW hall. Then 6 months ago, I got tired of waiting. I called up my old buddy Dom. He did woodworking out of his garage in Bethel Park, and asked if I could come by and help out some afternoons. He said, "Anytime, Frank. Not like a favor." The first week, I was useless. Dom laughed at me. "You built half the bridges in Allegheny County, and you can't run a hand plane straight?" I laughed too. Then I started making things, a small shelf, then a side table, then, and this got me in a way I didn't expect, I built a cradle for the baby of Dom's nephew. Solid cherry wood with hand-carved spindles. I spent 3 weeks on it. When I delivered it, the young mother cried. She said it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. I drove home, and for the first time in years, I didn't look at the phone. I started cooking again, too. My mother's pasta fagioli, the Monday kind, made from Sunday's leftovers. A real Sunday gravy, the kind that has to go 4 hours and fills the whole house with the smell of it. I invited the neighbors over. I invited the priest from St. Michael's. I invited Dom and his wife. My kitchen had voices in it again. And you know what happened? I became interesting. Not to my kids, at least not right away, but to myself. I found myself thinking, I need to finish that drawer, or tomorrow I'm hitting the hardware store before they close. Real thoughts, thoughts that looked forward. The hole in my chest didn't vanish, but it got smaller. I filled it with my hands, with the smell of sawdust, with steam rising off a pot. Then, one Tuesday afternoon in November, I remember exactly, I was listening to the Pirates game on the radio. The phone rang. It was Michael. "Dad, how you doing? It's been months since I heard from you." "Months since you heard from me, son." "Yeah, 'cause I was always the one calling." But I didn't say that. I said, "I'm good, Michael. I've been learning woodworking with Dom. Yesterday I finished a chest of drawers. You know cherry wood changes color as it ages?" And he said, "No kidding. I didn't know that." 40 minutes. The longest conversation we'd had in years. Not because I begged him, not because I guilted him, but because I had something to say. That's the lesson from my grandfather's garden. You chase a butterfly, it flies away. You build something beautiful, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, the butterfly comes to you. But now I have to tell you the hard part. The part nobody wants to hear. Sometimes you build the garden anyway, and the butterfly doesn't come. Sometimes you call and they don't pick up. Sometimes you wait and they don't show. Sometimes the Christmases go by, and the birthdays, and Thanksgiving, and that chair at the table stays empty. And then what? Then you have to do the most unnatural thing a parent can do. Let them go. Not in anger, not slamming doors, not with some big dramatic gesture that haunts you later. Let them go with love. Like releasing a bird you found injured on the porch, nursed back to health, and now it's ready for the sky. You open your hand, you watch it fly. It hurts, of course it hurts, but you can't keep it in a cage because you're afraid of being alone. Some kids drift away for their own reasons. Old wounds, complicated histories, a spouse or partner who pulled them in a different direction, or just a version of the world where parents are obligations to be managed rather than people to be loved. You can't change that. Not with calls, not with texts, not with pleading. The only thing you can control is yourself. And the question isn't, how do I win my kids back? The question is, what kind of man, what kind of woman do I want to be with the years I have left? Because you've got years left. Maybe not many, maybe more than you think. Nobody knows. But they're yours. You are not defined by who shows up on Sunday. You are defined by the face you see in the mirror when you shave in the morning, by the coffee you make with care, even when you're alone, by the way you keep your home, by the wave you give the guy at the corner store, by the dignity you carry into every ordinary day. I'm 79. My son Michael calls sometimes. Rosie less. Julie almost never. I don't know why. I stopped asking myself those questions at night, because those questions have no answers and they rob you of sleep without giving you a single thing back. What I know is that this afternoon I'm heading over to Dom's to finish a bookcase in black walnut. What I know is that tonight I'm making a pot of soup and bringing a bowl upstairs to Mrs. Benedetti, who's been sick all week. What I know is that tomorrow morning I'll wake up, make my coffee, watch the sun come up over the rooftops across the street, and think, I'm still here. The phone might ring, or it might not, but I'm not that old man sitting in the kitchen staring at the screen anymore. I'm Frank Caruso, 79 years old, retired ironworker, woodworker for the love of it, halfway decent cook, a man still standing. If my kids want to find me, they know where the door is. But I'm not waiting on the porch anymore. So to you, watching this, you who recognize this quiet kitchen, this still phone, this pain you can't explain to other people, because how do you say, my son doesn't call me, without sounding like you're feeling sorry for yourself? I'm telling you this, you are not alone, even when you feel alone. You didn't do everything wrong, even when your mind tells you that at night. You are not finished, even when it feels like you are. Call an old friend. Go to the farmer's market. Learn to make something with your hands. Cook for somebody. Take a drive somewhere you've never been. Read a book you always meant to read. Tell your story to someone who wants to hear it. Fill your life with real things, real presents, real smells, real voices, real days. Not to get your kids back, though sometimes that happens, but for you, only for you, because you deserve it. You deserve a hot cup of coffee in the morning and dinner with friends on a Friday night. You deserve to laugh, to cuss when your team blows a 3-point lead, to grab a warm pretzel at the stadium and eat it before you even find your seat. You deserve to live, not to wait. My phone didn't ring this morning, but I slept well. I made my coffee. I watched the sun come up. And now I'm going to go work the wood. If you want to come find me, the door's open. Just don't expect to find me standing there waiting for you.